Yeah. Good morning. It is March 19th, and we are finishing up Etgar Keret's book, The 7 Good Years. And I think, I know that I've enjoyed it, and I think it was good for us at this time, looking at the world, what's happening in the world. And I'll talk about spilt milk at the end of this. And I thought the last three chapters, Sue, hi.
I rushed, I overslept.
Oh,
You can sit here.
the last,
This is your usual, right?
yeah. Can you, but Sue, can you, all right, I'll back up. Let's see.
Oh, it should be.
There we go. There she is.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought the last three chapters were very poignant.
Yeah, I did too.
So did I.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, if we could ask him questions in person. Well, look, obviously it was following a linear. This is one of the books where they were not, really going back and forth in time. And in my in my evening book group, sometimes you get those, that they're going back in time, back and forth, and sometimes you don't know where they are in time, but this one was, fairly, it was fairly straightforward. Okay.
Can I ask a question? I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Is this all truth or is this
Yeah.
all,
It's a memoir.
Yeah.
it's a memoir?
memoir.
It's actually really did.
Yeah. Says it's a
Wait.
memoir.
Which do you think, which is implausible for you?
Implausible for me because
Which
does-
part?
He does everything and his wife does kind of nothing. And he berates her. I don't know. I just towards the end, I just wondered, some of the things are just too, I don't know. Some of it I think is the first part I did. The last year 7 I thought was a little strange.
Okay, Ellen.
I loved every minute of reading.
I think I know what Izzy's referring to. Oh, now my coffee's finishing. It's making noise. You're not hearing that.
No.
You're not hearing it. Good. I think I know what Izzy's referring to because I attribute it to his fabulous talent, of starting everything and finishing everything, and it all wraps up and usually ends with what happens. But it is a memoir, so I take it at face value that it's a memoir. But I think he's a great writer in there, and whether it's totally true or he's made a little bit up, I give him leeway for that.
It's very funny.
So I will say this: one, he's a storyteller, and two, you can only imagine his wife would have version 2 of whatever he has told. Elaine.
I think it's interesting. I thought that article you're talking about the taxi driver, Izzy. And I thought, sometimes we have strange thoughts and it pops into our little brains something that's unusual. And when he said my wife is mean, I don't think he meant mean in like ha ha ha, she's different than she's thinking differently than I am. And I think it's the thing that I liked about this book, which I liked a lot, was that it's realistic. It shows what you're thinking. And sometimes it's not filtered exactly the way politically correct it is, but it's human.
Yeah.
And that's the way I thought it was.
Yeah.
And the next story about the little boy in pastrami, I thought was so poignant.
Very
and
poignant.
so on point as we say nowadays.
Yes.
It's just what comes into his brain, comes into the book.
Yeah.
No,
Before Evelyn and Izzy, just welcome back, Barb. And, we're thinking about you, and we know it's been very hard. Points.
And I just want to say thank you all who have sent me notes. They're very meaningful and very comforting, and I really appreciate it. And I just love this group. I love everything about it.
Well, that's when you belong to a synagogue and a group, that we're here for you, and so I'm really glad you're back. And you did, you had an excused absence because it was the day of the funeral. the last time we met. Evie. Wait, all right, I unmuted you.
Little teary-eyed from what Barb just said, and my heart, of course, goes out to her. The pastrami sandwich, I almost started to. Last night we went to hear the speaker at Macomb, and I almost blurted out pastrami sandwich when he was giving the describing what it was like for him in Israel, or what it was like in general when they lie down on the ground with their arms. And it was almost a reaction because I was teary-eyed the whole time and almost burst out laughing. So that back and forth. But I think hearing him say that made the story more realistic to me as well. You know, all of a sudden I had the visual because I had just read that in the afternoon. And I just want to say, just shout out that was such a wonderful evening last night. I didn't know what to expect, and it was just so the emotional charge that I think was necessary at a time when we've been listening to all the news in terms of the politics and the concrete, and the emotion had been missing for
Yeah.
a while, and it was just a recharge of why we're doing all this.
Right. Whenever you have a speaker and, you know, he's like a poet laureate and he has a bunch of books and I have extras of the books. I'm not exactly sure where they are right now. But I'm sure they're in the building. There's no way they could have thrown them out. I shouldn't say that because you never know. But you never know when you schedule a speaker on Israel, what's going to happen. We couldn't have known in a million years that in the morning, you know, 300 people were bombed in Gaza. We couldn't have known that, you know, the ceasefire, you know, I think it's shot now. And so to have him here to kind of unravel that was special. And, you know, his name is Alden Solovey. He grew up in Highland Park. And I'm pretty sure his mom still lives here. Because I didn't want to say, is your mom still alive? But I think she is. I'm not 100%. Judith Golden, I'm going to have to ask her. They know each other. So he has beautiful books. Many of it, you know, written since October 7th. And you know, really, when you talk to Israelis and you listen to the news and you hear podcasts, you know, October 7th was absolutely a watershed event. And, you know, everything is different after it. Okay, wait a minute. I have Ellen, Sue, and then Izzy.
I just have a question about last night. You didn't record that, did you?
Well, here's the thing, I did. But it's on Vimeo, which I don't know how to get a hold of. And I'll ask Holly if we can pull it down.
Oh, I
Now-
think I have Vimeo here. So if for some reason.
No. I'd have to push it up to you too.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
and full transparency, I was working the camera. And there was only like, at the end, there was 2 or 3 viewers. So I was
Okay, well, if I ever get it,
experimenting.
I will give you, you know, total credit, whatever.
Well, it was just, yeah, anyway, okay, oh, damn it. Sue,
Oh, so I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
I don't know why.
About last night, though. It was really what we needed.
Yes,
And I think.
he was not political.
No, and he didn't want to get
He
political.
did not
And when
want
people-
to.
And when people asked him political questions, he got away from it.
Yeah,
He really didn't want to do
Right.
that.
right.
And I guess because my son had been there volunteering, I so identified with the things that he was saying. I felt like he was really speaking to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm sorry for those who didn't come or didn't, you know, tune in last night, because it was really worth it.
yeah. So I'm gonna have to, I'll have to ask and, you know, see what the what.
And you know what I noticed about him?
Yeah.
He he's still so emotionally
Yeah.
involved that there were times he just couldn't speak.
Yeah, I think
And
he was crying.
Yes, and he had to get himself back
Yeah.
into being able
Yeah.
to talk.
Yeah. Again, I think that the trauma in Israel has been inflicted for decades.
Yes.
Decades. And
Oh, I know what I was going to say
yeah.
now. I watched the movie October 8th.
Oh, right. I heard.
And one of the things they said about October 7th is when somebody starts a war, they don't always know what the reaction to their starting that war is going to be.
Mhm.
And so whatever Israel has done is because they started that war.
Yeah, I know. It's just,
And-
yeah, well, we can't, we're gonna keep
That's
it
political, so.
Yes. Izzy,
Yeah, I know. I have two things. First of all, the thing that was remarkable about this book, I don't know, it was written how many years ago, but everything about it is still happening today. When they hear a bomb
Yes.
and they go to the side of the road, I mean, it's nothing's changed.
Yeah,
And
right.
that was a theme throughout the book, which I thought it brought it really to home, that this has been ongoing. And the
Yeah.
second thing I wanted to ask is, can you give a little summary of what happened last night?
Yes.
What-
So,
what do you think?
Alden Solovey was here. He has 4 or 5 books put up at the CCAR, Central Conference of American Reform Rabbis. And he's like a poet laureate. So we sang some peace songs. Cantor J was with him. And here's what they, behind the scenes, behind the music on VH1, that he and Cantor J are in this rabbinical program together. And obviously really hit it off. And so Cantor J sang one of his poems that had been put to music. And he read some of his poems, but he also talked about his experiences. As Abby said, when he had to jump out of the car, he had landed at Ben Gurion and the missiles are coming and, they jumped out of the car and they jumped back in the car. And it was just a really beautiful night. That was for about an hour. We had a couple of questions. People asked about, how do you write? Things like that. But it was a very moving evening. And it is, I think, what Sue said, that's what we needed. That's what we need now.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Mary, Ellen, Evie.
What I think is really the genius of this book, it has lasted 7 years, his writing. I mean, right? He starts at one point, and as a good writer, he ends at the same point. He starts he starts in the hospital where there's been a bomb. I mean, people have been hurt. He ends with the same kind of thing. And in between, he weaves childhood, parenting, living in Israel and the reality of living in Israel. And he's able to put, he starts, it's hard to write a memoir and you break it. Is year 7 really like year 1? In some ways, you see that arc of this is really life experience. And it's really the same. Nothing changes in 7 years. And yet he finds joy and humor and hope and all sorts of things within those 7 years. And the Mastrani series, I mean, that just shows you it's like, yeah, it's horrible in one sense of what's going on. But on the other hand, he gives it a sense of levity or humor or humanness that lifts it above just, okay, we're out here being, terrorized all the time. That dark cloud breaks.
Yeah.
And I think that's a genius to be able to do that.
It is. I agree with you. Okay, we have Ellen, Evie, then Merle.
I
Ellen.
was just going to say, I agree with everything that was said, and pastrami sandwich is such a wonderful ending. The very last line of pastrami sandwich brings the wife back into it. She says,
Yes.
and if not, we can play it without sirens too, whether or not there's going to be any more alarms because the little boy wants to do it. And that's just so cute. And it kind of tells us the family's whole, he's admitted when he's been mean to her or whatever, but I just thought it was a unification at the end and a confirmation. It was said.
And they said, I'll teach you how to play grilled cheese. And
Right.
it,
It was
it was just very, very sweet. Merle, I'll unmute you.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. I just thought so much of this book was about parenting, and we started out with a little boy being born, and oh, is he going to be in the army when he's older? But the idea that the little boy was never traumatized by anything that was going on because his parents were so careful to protect him. And it was almost a brilliant lesson in parenting that as a little boy, 7 years old, he just thought, oh, it's a game. It's all a game. And I really respected how they protected him instead of telling him what was really going on in detail, which would have been way too much for a 7-year-old. So
Yeah.
I just respected everything he did as a parent.
Agreed. Abby, I'm sorry.
When we were talking about going back and forth, from the perspective from the beginning to the end of a story, and I'm reverting back now to last night with an experience that I personally had listening to the music, and there was a song that I had never heard, the prayer or whatever, that several people seemed to know, that I guess came about right after October 7th. And the feeling that I had listening to it at first, I said, when have I had that feeling? And I remember it was in 1967, and I was on a trip to Europe. I had just graduated, and I was at Paris Opera House, and somebody sang Yerushalayim Shel Zahav for the very first time. And I am just, the tears were just coming down. And then all of a sudden I thought to myself, but wait a second, this is a different story. And it's a different result from it. And all of a sudden it was just, the emotion that I had just seemed familiar and out of place at the same time, that I just didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to sum it up. A lot of us have emotions, we just don't know what to do with them. And for the most part, here at Macomb, I'm dealing with adults. At camp, I deal with kids, and I think that I think it's important to talk to kids, super important, and to give them the love of Israel. And a colleague of mine, Sivan Zakai, who's a professor in California, not exactly sure which university she's at right now. But she has a book out called My Second Favorite Country. And she did a long range study that kids can hold two things, not unlike adults, in their mind at once. That, Israel is my homeland, and, there's a war going on there, and it could be frightening. And Sivan has said that we need to name what's happening, because otherwise the whatever's out there in a child or in our mind becomes so big you can't confront it. You have to talk about Arabs and Palestinians and what's happening. Obviously, not unlike, when your kids say, where did that baby come from? You don't have to get into everything, but if you don't tell them anything, their imagination is way worse than what's happening. That's what I believe. Izzy, was your hand up?
No.
Whose hand? Ellen? Whose hand was?
Mine.
Oh, Elaine.
Okay.
Hard.
Okay. I think that we in America tend to hide our feelings. You don't talk about this. You don't do this. You don't do that. And when my husband died, which is my main concern, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I wanted to express how I felt.
Right.
And I said to my grandchildren, you have to talk at the funeral and you have to tell story. No one wanted to do that. I said, yes, but as no, that'll hurt your feelings. We don't want to discuss it. We tend to hide things. And that is one of the things that is so wrong.
Yeah.
You need to deal with, you need to get it out there, deal with it, and then sometimes let it go.
Yeah. At my dad's funeral, my dad was very bawdy. I'll just leave it at that. The kids got up, the grandkids got up, and a friend of mine said, I've never heard so much swearing at a funeral because in their eulogies, they reference some of their funny stories with Papa. But I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Alice. No, I know.
Yeah, I want to give kudos to our synagogue. Going to what Vanessa was just saying. I do a Tikkun Olam pro.
But it's really not easy.
You froze. You froze.
Okay. Oh, can you hear? No, I froze.
Now I can hear you now. Go.
I froze because I could hear the other. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Anyways.
Oh, I thought it was a Zoom freeze.
No, I froze because I heard. Okay. So anyways, I do this program, the Tikkun Olam program with 6th graders at Love Learning. And I was trying to schedule a time for us to come in. And I don't know if I was talking to no, I think I was talking directly to Ashley Plotnick. And she said, well, we're going into the classrooms. I'm going in along, I think it was with Rabbi Sarada, to talk to the kids about Israel and how, their emotions about it and stuff like that. So we're going to have to reschedule, and I thought, oh, this is so good that, our clergy is, so involved with the kids and what their feelings are. So I just want to,
It's super, super important.
Yeah.
Mary.
Going to dealing with the truth of the matter, Israel, with kids, with people growing up, and being open in terms of it's a tragedy on both sides. And my daughter's is in a situation where her temple, it's only Israel, period. I mean, no one says anything about, they don't even in the service mention that 400, Gazans have been killed. I mean, they just don't. And she loved the educator. So right now they're really, after a year, they've been with the educator for 2 years. She's leaving. She's a rabbi. She's leaving to head a temple in Long Island.
Oh, Melissa Beyer.
Oh, she's phenomenal.
She's amazing.
I will not, I can't go into a whole thing. It's just, so it's been amazing that way. And I said to Ike, before I knew she was leaving, I talked about her. We were talking about the reaction we had because we had gone to a service and, it nailed what Anne had been saying that, this is. So I asked Ike about it and he said, it's really important. He goes, if you don't tell young people the truth, what happens is they get to be 20 or 22 or 23 and they walk away because they have not been taught to deal with it.
Yeah.
We are trying to deal with the emotions of pro-Israel. We want to support, it's a tragedy. And then how do you incorporate the horrible things with Gaza? And so we wrestle with that every day. And it's important for kids when they have questions that they're wrestling with because they see the same thing.
Yeah.
How do you handle it or how do you talk about it or how do you?
Yeah.
And I think is if you don't talk about it, you got a real problem when they mature.
Yeah. I agree. My personal kids went to Schechter camp, Israel, and there's been a little, a rebellion and you didn't tell us the truth. I'm like, hey, yes, I did. And, even at Legacy Lakeside, I had Palestinian authors come in and anyway. But Izzy asked, is this really true? And I wanted to share with you pictures of the building, the house in Poland.
Yes, I know. It's really amazing.
So the world's thinnest house. So that it's true. It's true.
Jen, I have, okay.
Go ahead.
All right. There's something in Deerfield called the Pie House.
Yeah,
Oh, I know.
just sold.
Yes,
Sold.
because a teacher here, that was her house.
Yes, I looked up because I had the pleasure of walking through because my daughter knew who was the owner before. But it was amazing because at the narrowest, it was 3.5 feet, the Pie House. And that went out, and I'm assuming this has to go out this way too, like in a pie. That's why they call it, because it's a slice of pie.
No, it's
No, this is different. This is different. This is between two buildings. It used to be a bridge, but it goes up higher. It's 3 stories.
Right, but how can you lay down in a four foot?
I don't know how wide it
Bed.
is.
It's the 2 walls, you just kind of
Right.
pull back
There
and
it
get your
is.
crawl and turn over.
There it is.
Yeah, there's the bed.
Maybe it gets wider I don't know.
No,
No,
If anybody hasn't seen the Pie House,
Look.
it's really interesting in Deerfield. The address
That's the
is
problem. And
the
then
Pie
they
House.
don't analyze
Yeah.
it too much.
the artist has actually created several other places like this for other artists, for other
Yeah.
writers and things.
Yeah.
So, but it is a project and to use space to give people in the arts a place, habitat.
right,
It
right.
was incredible. I
Um,
love that story. I love
Yeah,
it.
Alice.
Yeah, I had a question about that story. So, Etgar Keret gets a call from the architect. So did the architect know who he was because he was
Yes.
a published writer? Because I was confused about how the architect connected with him.
Yeah, so I think the architect not only knew him, but knew that his mother was a Holocaust survivor from Poland, from Warsaw.
Okay.
Because what did you think of the mother's response to this? And the mother did not go back to Poland. She was not, she was like, oh, and she recognized everything. Oh, that's the street, that's the blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, at the end, that woman came who maybe or maybe not knew her. A woman came to Edgar who may have known his mother.
Yeah.
It
I
was
think-
beautiful. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah.
One comment on this is that Kurt's been asked, why aren't you leaving Israel? A lot of times, he's been speaking in the US in the last year or
Yeah.
whatever. And his response was really interesting. He went back to his mother.
Yeah.
His mother lost her place, her history, her roots, and had always said that Israel will be the roots. This is where we're going to go. This is where we are. We need to dig down and become part of the community and really relish and love where we're living, because it can be wiped out in a minute. So he said, that's why I can't leave. I can't leave because of that.
Mhm.
And I think that's really interesting. And I think that comes through here. As bad as
Yes.
things are,
Yeah.
and he doesn't like Netanyahu, he doesn't like the
Right.
government,
Right.
he's not about to leave. He's going to stay and be part of Israel. And
Those of us in the evening book group, we have a family with an opposite point of view. But that On Her Own by Leahy Lapid, and again, I recommend that book. I'll put it in the chat. Evie, then Merle.
Well, I was just kind of going back and forth and how do any of us feel when we drive by some of our former houses? It's kind of mixed, sometimes you're curious, sometimes, oh, I don't want to. And I had a flashback reading this, that when I was in, I think I've mentioned that I'm the only child of an only survivor. And I went back to Vienna also on that same trip in 1967 and saw and I can't remember now, unfortunately, if it was the apartment building that my father lived in or the business that the family had. And at that time it was, oh, okay. And I just don't remember. It was so emotional for other reasons that did not play I didn't feel any emotion. And when I came back, and my father, of course, never had any desire to go back because there was nobody to visit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't remember if I had pictures, and it was not a big deal. And he was an older man. But reading this story, I had kind of remorse that I didn't have those feelings. Whereas in the real time, I didn't have the feelings. But what feelings should I have had, and I could have had, and
Yeah, but you were young. If you went back now, it'd be different.
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay.
You were a
thank you.
kid.
Yeah, it was 20. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I feel better.
Kid-ish. Frontal lobe still not developed. Merle, then Elaine. Merle.
Okay, there was a line in the story Jam where he's remembering that his mother had told him that when her father died, she was all alone, and her father told her she must not die. She had to survive. And yesterday, Chuck Schumer was on television trying to promote his new book, Anti-Semitism in America. And he was,
He's got some timing problems, but anyway, go ahead.
yeah, but he was talking about one thing that, this story is about finally the jam sandwich is given to the children who are escaping by this lady because she wants them to survive. She wants them to eat. So anyway, he was saying in his book, he wanted people to understand more about Jews, and he wanted to explain something about holidays, like we just had Purim. He said, many Jewish holidays share this in common. Somebody tried to destroy the Jews. 2, the Jews survived. 3, we say, let's eat.
Yeah.
So these things all go together. So the lady was trying to make sure that the children survive. She gives them the jam sandwiches. But it's true. It's true that these holidays like Passover, it always ends with let's eat.
Yeah.
I thought what he
That's
did was
great.
kind of, funny and ties it up very nicely.
Yeah.
Mostly he
I
wanted
agree.
the president to read his
Oh.
book about anti-Semitism.
I can't even go there. Whose hand was, I forget.
Mine.
Elaine. Damn it, I'm forgetting you. You're right.
I'm right in front of you.
Sorry.
Okay, I talk a lot about personal things.
It's okay.
I just put my house up for sale and it's sold. And my grandchildren's, I walked away and said, I have to do it as a business. This is a business and I'm not emotionally involved. 5 of my grandchildren sent me text. Oh, it's such a special hug, blah, blah, blah. It's so sad that their interpretation was so different.
Interesting.
And then, okay, we haven't also talked about the guy that didn't believe in God and said,
Right.
and God
Yeah.
said, until you believe in me, you're going to live.
Right.
And that goes back to the sandwich also, I think. It's all tied into
Yeah.
your feelings and what you think and how you feel at different ages of your life. There's no question that young children feel one way. We feel a totally different
Right.
emotion. We are totally different.
Right. And listen, I think it was very brave of him to go back to build the house because especially right after the war, when Jews went back, the Polish people were not welcoming. They were happy with their big houses, and it was a terrible. It wasn't a good time. I will say, and it is interesting, not unlike, Evie's parents who didn't want to go back. The only people that I know some people have been back, but it's just because I know them well. The Dermans, Lisa and Aaron Derman, who have both passed, they were resistance fighters in the ghetto. And their stories were unbelievable. And their son, Daniel, is a very good friend of mine. And so I heard the stories at dinners and, holiday gatherings. And they were good storytellers, Lisa and Aaron Derman. And they would tell it together. And it was mainly Lisa. And then Aaron would interrupt and say, no, that's not how it happened. But, and they took kids back to Poland, and they Shorshim trips, and I give them all the kudos for doing that because that can't have been easy, and it's not easy to go back, and a lot of people never went back. So,
This story reminded me so much of my own father. Because my dad was born in a shtetl right outside of Kiev. And, but he was a child when he was brought to this country. But when my mother wanted to go to Europe, my father said, no. We ran away from there. Why would I go back?
yeah,
That was a common
And
thing.
that
very
was,
common.
eventually they did go, but not to Russia.
Yeah,
But he absolutely
Yeah.
didn't want to have anything to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
with anything like that.
And I think people who did go back to Russia, especially in the 80s, that was to help refuseniks. And Alyssa Whiteman, who's a member here, she and I were talking. She went on some trip and she was very young, and her suitcase was filled of, ibuprofen and all these things that the refuseniks needed. She goes, what was I thinking? I could have been held in customs or whatever. But she went and she delivered it. She's also a good storyteller. Alice.
Yeah, I was going to say, this story was so emotional, so poignant. So the mom, I don't know how old she is when the Nazis, but she has the will to survive. And the author says on page 161, she kept the family and their name alive. And then the last line in the story is, I'm here, Mom, I reply in a choked voice, in our home in Warsaw. So, even though she personally didn't want to go back, it's just so, okay, it's this tiny little chink of a house in between all these other houses, but it's here he's in his, an Israeli Jew who has a home in Warsaw. It says so much in just that one line.
Yeah.
I just feel that's the epitome of this book, is that every line he says so much.
Yeah. In the paragraph before, that night I sat in the kitchen of my narrow house, drinking a cup of tea and eating a slice of bread and jam that is sweet with generosity and sour with memories. Yep.
Okay, I know how emotional that is. This story so reminded me of that movie that was just out with Jesse Eisenberg, how they go back.
Oh, yes.
A real pain.
A real pain.
What's your expectations, my God? And I have been doing genealogy for 30 plus years, and my mother's family, they're from a small shtetl 25 miles northwest of Warsaw. And luckily, my mother came here in 1920. And after 1924, they passed a very severe Immigration Act, which set a path for Hitler to do what he did. But I have addresses of where my mother grew up, where her family grew up, the family that remained there. I lost about 40 members of my family in the Holocaust, and I wanted to know where they were and where they lived. And you can get that information. And Google Earth is amazing. You could go in and put an address in and see what's there today. A lot of times, nothing is there.
Yeah.
Nothing is left. But I think it's an attempt for people who go back and want to have this experience. It's an attempt to flesh out their ancestors' lives or how they grew up and what did they experience. And I think you have to set your expectations up for sometimes disappointment, and sometimes maybe being, getting more than you expected.
Yeah.
But I think I just so related to this because I have seen where my mother grew up.
Yeah. And look, the Germans kept very good records.
Extremely.
So it's easy to go back for that. And Google Earth is it's just amazing. And even just Google, when you think about it, is amazing. Like I've Googled my, a great aunt or great uncle, their obituary, and it comes up, and then you see their headstone, and it's like, oh yeah, there it is. And then, go over the dates with my mom. The ones we do have a quick poll here, and this is from what was the name of that chapter? Fair and Good. No, there, Jam, and then, Fair and Good. No discussion, and then we'll discuss who would let their cab driver or Uber driver into their house if they had to go to the bathroom, if they had to make a pee. Raise your hand. No, Alice is no, okay. Oh, is yes, Joyce is, okay, all right. No, Sue is no.
I am a problem.
Okay.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not is
So,
right.
just like Edgar Keret, we are split. We are split. And I thought that chapter again, he surrounds everything. And Izzy, when you said, is it real? Listen, I'm sure, it would be interesting to talk to him, but it would be just as interesting to talk to the wife to see what she has to say about all of this. And can you imagine getting up, you're not dressed, and there's a man in your apartment? Izzy, then Abby. Oh, wait, I have to unmute you.
Okay.
All right, go.
For sure, when I read it, I thought, of course I would, there would be no question. And then when I thought about it a little later, I think he should have called his wife and said, there's a strange person that's going to be coming up right now.
Yeah,
That would have been more interesting. Then my first impression was, yes, of course, that would be mean not to do that. But then when I thought about it later, I thought, maybe he had some nefarious reason for wanting to go up there. Maybe he was going to rob them. Maybe he was going to do whatever. And so I changed.
In today's world, you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, Elaine said in today's world, in America,
Yes.
you would not do it.
Yes.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
That's
So I
what
changed
I
my.
was basing my answer on,
But my
Right.
first
Yeah.
in
was,
today's
of course.
world.
Yeah, you
All
would
right.
have done it 10 years ago.
Abby and then Joyce.
I would probably invite them for tea or a snack, but a little more
Yeah.
stingy about using the
Yeah.
bathroom. So what
Yeah.
does that say about me? I don't know.
Then for sure they'd have to go to the bathroom. Joyce and then Sue.
Needs to work.
Yes, I was living
Yeah,
alone or single. I doubt if I would do it.
Good
If my
point.
husband,
Yeah.
and I were together and whatever, then I don't think I would have hesitated. And on a personal level, because I had been suffering with UTIs so frequently, I could have identified with him and would have had Rahmanas for him, and therefore would have had sympathy and probably. But on the other hand, it's so much easier for a man.
Yes.
Being able
That's
to
true.
urinate somewhere than it is for a woman.
Absolutely.
Here.
And, maybe I would have thought twice and said, hey, you can go almost anywhere. I remember when my grandsons were little and I would say, and they had to go, I would say, find a bush. It's the old story
Exactly.
about the two little kids on a picnic. So
Yeah.
the story can go either way.
It can go either way. Sue.
Well, I would not have done that. I would have given him a urinal bottle.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Good idea.
Good idea.
Great idea.
Because I wouldn't let a strange man
Yeah.
into my house, no
Yes.
matter what.
What? Yeah.
And we've even read things about Uber drivers.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
no, that would be a big no in my regard. But in light of this whole book, I have to say that I think Etgar Keret is a wonderful man.
Mhm.
When you think about people who are good, people who are evil, people who are just normal, middle of the road people, I mean, nobody's perfect, but he's as good as they come.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed by the character
Mhm.
of the author of
Yeah.
this book.
Here, Alan. Alan, did you have a?
Oh, no, I was just totally agreeing. I think his character comes out
Yeah.
really great. I put my finger up just to emphasize
Okay.
that I
Yeah.
agree with Susan. His character is amazing. He wouldn't have been able to write what he did without it.
Yeah, here. The one thing he did not bring to that story, and I was kind of waiting for it. The first time I was in Israel with my dad, I grew up in Crystal Lake. There's no other Jews there. And my dad would look around and say, everyone is Jewish here, the bus driver, the beggars, everyone. And so, and he felt like they're Jewish. I need to give the beggars, and believe me, in a time in Israel, there were a lot of beggars. And, you know, he would just feel he's got to give them money. He's got to give them money. And, you know, cab drivers in Israel can be Israeli, Russian, Arab. And he didn't, you know, a Jewish cab driver, you'd probably be more likely to let into your apartment, but you can see why his wife was a little estranged from that. Barb.
Yeah, I know. I love I just love this. I think he's such a wonderful writer and just packs a lot into a little book.
Yeah.
One of my favorite characters in this whole book is his wife. She is like, I don't want to say she's the opposite of him because she's really not.
Yeah.
But she is just a reflection of the way she reacts to everything he does is just terrific. I mean, you get a real sense of their marriage and their relationship.
Yeah.
I like the fact that she calls him on things and he actually appreciates either, well, she's mean, but.
Yeah.
You know, she made me angry, but.
Yeah,
Or we disagree, but there's always that. And that's how real marriages are. I mean,
Yes.
you don't always agree and you
Yeah.
have, you know, but there's something more there than just the disagreement. And you
Yes.
see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm studying with a Hebrew tutor right now, and the person above the teacher, the person who's running this little school, her husband, I think, works with Etgar Keret, and so I said, "Is he a nice guy?" And he is a nice guy, which, of course, you would expect from, you know, you feel like you know him, and you know, you could go out and get a cup of coffee with him, and he would be super interesting. Alice.
Yeah, I agree with everybody who said they really liked the book and thought he was, you know, a good person and all that. I mean, I think it was the epitome of a great short story book because really each chapter was very, very short, you know, just a few pages. And yet he packed so much into those few pages. Yes. And I don't know, I felt like I knew him, I knew his son, I knew his wife. And then, you know, all the Israel issues and the Holocaust issues that he packed into these stories, I thought it was fabulous.
The other thing that I wanted to say about Etgar Keret is he has a lot of articles out there with Syed Kashua, who is an Arab Israeli. And Syed is a gifted writer and writes in English. I think I don't think their books might be translated, although I don't, you know, you have to mention the translator because that's, you know, like a second author. So maybe these are written in English. And Syed Kashua, you know, has the other viewpoint of being an Arab in Israel. And it's their dialogue. And I'm going to try to find some of it and send it out in the next thing because it's just fascinating. And it gives another look into his politics. He's very left wing and but at the same time, I would say nationalistic. And I think now nationalism has a bad connotation, has a bad people, you know, people don't want to be affiliated with that. But I would say he's, you know, he's a Zionist and he's pro-Israel. And you know what that means in our world, which we're not going to get into, thank God. But you know, when you take it to an extreme, it can, you know, definitely mean something. Mary.
I think I read that this was the first book he wrote in English.
Oh, that could be.
No, it's translated.
It's
translated. Or it's his first book that he got translated into English.
Yes, that could be. Yeah.
It was the first longer piece.
Yeah.
Well, something like that. Yeah.
I think they said it was translated into 37.
Yes. And he said in here, isn't it ironic that he's very popular in Poland and Germany? I find that super ironic and that he had to go to Croatia. Oh, Izzy, I'm sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, his mother said that he was a Polish
Right.
writer from Israel.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, yes.
She really, I thought
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I encourage you, he's got a lot of other books out there. You know, they're not long, they're not, you know, you'll enjoy it. Any other comments? And then, March 19th, we start,
Today's March 19th.
right, yeah. So April, it's not that funny, Alice. Now I gotta go to the calendar. I think it's April, let's see, April 2nd. Okay. In 2 weeks. We start our new book.
Which is,
Spilt Milk, here it is.
oh, yes, I started that.
Yes. And I think this is not a heavy book and, I don't know about you all, but I need some levity in my life. It's just very, very hard otherwise. And, you know, we'll get into parenting and, all of that. Courtney Zoffness, but I'll talk about her more, next, you know, when we meet in 2 weeks. Any other comments, questions? I may have some books left from Alden. So if you're in Macomb, just let me know. I do have to find the books, but I should try to find them this morning. And other things coming up, please vote. You know, after we've read Etgar Keret, you got to vote in the WZO. You don't need to be a member of a congregation. You vote, please vote reform, because we know the people. Number 3, and it's $5, but the more people we have at that conference, the more we can ask for money to go to our projects for progressive Judaism in Israel, for reform synagogues in Israel, because in Israel, it's a theocracy. You have to be married, Jewish, Christian, Arab. And Jewish, it's only by the Rabbanut, and they're all Orthodox. They don't recognize Reform and conservative rabbis there.
My brother had trouble getting married in Israel.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sure. And now if you get married, and a lot of people, they don't want to get married by the Rabbanut, they get married in Cyprus. Which is that's the fastest place to go. And then their marriages are acknowledged in Israel, but like you can get married here and it'll be acknowledged in Israel, but you can't get married by a Reform rabbi in Israel. So this is an important vote. This is something that, you know, what can I do? This is something you can do. And, you know, I can't thank you enough. It's a little challenging going online, but if you have troubles, let us know. Alan.
I totally agree with you on that. I've been working on the vote while I've been gone and trying to get people to vote. So it's very important. There is also a consolidated election for those of you that live in Highland Park and Moraine Township. And our very own Art Kessler, who has served on the District 112 board and has done an amazing job, is running for re-election. And I totally have endorsed him and I urge you to vote for him.
When's that election?
April 1st,
April
and if you
1st,
vote
yeah,
by
but-
mail, I mean, we're
but
waiting
early
for our
voting is
absentee
now.
ballots, but
Yeah, I
we'll
got
vote
a
back
ballot
out.
came out.
Okay.
I voted yesterday. It's early voting.
It's early voting's
Early
open.
vote, you can vote by mail.
Send me a ballot.
And so I live in the Highland Park part of Deerfield. Is that, can we,
Where's your elementary district? Is it 112?
it could be either.
Well,
I could
there's
either go to
112
Sherwood or Kipling.
Right. So you have to look up your address to see where you vote. You probably vote in
It'll be
Deerfield,
on
but
your ballot, but you've got to, I'm not sure how they do that because there are some.
yeah, I don't
some
know
either
because
or.
that's by choice. That's not by designation of the, where do you pay your, what district you pay for in your taxes.
Really?
Go back to your tax receipt.
I know. I'll ask Arthur.
That's so
109.
interesting that you,
Hey,
I
that-
knew nothing.
Right. Not only do I not know, but my kids went to Schechter, so I didn't use any of that money. They did go to Deerfield High School. So.
Right.
All right, it's great to see everyone. If you have any questions, please see me and just watch your Macomb at home. The building is closed next week because they're putting up film on our windows for security reasons. So
Really?
yeah, if somebody shoots, the glass won't shatter.
Right, that's good. That's
Oh
terrible
my
that has to be done,
I
but
Oh,
just got
terrible.
chills from you saying that.
Right.
They
Tens
should
of
do
thousands
the
of
parking
dollars,
lot.
which we got a grant for, but still.
They should do the parking lot.
Absolutely.
We didn't get a grant for the park, believe me.
Isn't that the same thing that they're using for birds, if crashing into windows so they don't break?
Oh, maybe. That could be, yeah.
They need to give parking lessons to.
They do, yes, all
Yes,
of
that's
them.
what I'm saying.
All right, goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Thanks, Vanessa.